To backpedal a little bit, around my 14th year, my stepfather passed away. He passed away in our home, and we had to move out for a little while, but unfortunately, due to finances with my mother, we had to stay there. We weren't going to stay there long, just enough time to get the house sold and basically get things taken care of. We'd barely been there maybe a few weeks, and we started noticing some things that were far out of the ordinary. Now, I don't know if any of you remember this, but there used to be these lamps that you could touch. They called them touch lamps, and, I'd had it for a long time. We kind of assumed that maybe there was something wrong with the lamp because it kept coming on and coming off. And finally, my mom decided that she was going to go ahead and purchase a new one. So we went back to the store, and so she purchased a new one. We set that up in my room that night, and I laid down and I went to bed. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, I rolled over and realized that the light had gone out. And I thought maybe this was a feature. Maybe the manufacturer had set it that way, and I told my mom about it after turning it on the next night. And we looked over the box, and there was nothing in there about that. So my mom said it was probably just the wiring, and being all of 14 at the time, that's what I wanted to chalk it up to. That same night, I rolled over and I went back to sleep. Around that same time, about 2:30 in the morning, I heard like a tapping noise, and I got up, and the light went brighter, and then shut off. Now, any of you that may have owned these lamps know that that's what settings it had. It was dim, and then, it got brighter, and then it got brighter. And until eventually it would cycle through, and it would shut off. It shut off. And I was like, okay, whatever. A little shaken up, so I roll over, and I hit the light. I hit it a second time because I don't like it. I didn't like it, the dimmest setting. I might have been 14 and tried to act tough, but the dark, still as an adult, scares me. So I turned over on my left side towards the wall because how my bed faced was against the right wall when you walked in through my door. Tap, tap. I roll over. The light does it again. I was like, what is going on? Maybe we just purchased a bad light. I roll over to turn the light off, and from across my hall, I'll explain the layout of the house a little bit. We lived in one of those 3-bedroom L-shaped homes. So when you'd walk in through the corridor, there'd be a hallway to your left, followed by my brother's room, my room, and then when you walked further down the hall, you did like an L curve. And there was the bathroom that was me and my brother's bathroom we shared, and then my parents' room. Across from my bedroom was the bathroom, and the light came on in the bathroom. I was curious at that point because I assumed that maybe my brother or my mom had gotten up, because my brother, he's about 7 years younger than me, so he was about 7 years old at the time. And I thought maybe he'd gotten up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, or, something to that effect, until I put my legs over the bed and I stood up. I saw what appeared to be a woman walking out of the bathroom into my, mother's room because, my stepfather had passed away, so it was just my mother. And I got up, I went to the bathroom. I turned towards my mother's room, and the door was open, which is kind of abnormal because my mother usually kept the door shut or, cracked, but it was open. I walked in and I said, Mom, did you need something? And she rolled over and in her half-sleep state, she said, what? And I was like, you were in the bathroom. Is everything okay? I'm half asleep myself, just, I guess, curious as a teen. And she said, what? No, go back to sleep. Well, so I confused, I turned back and I shut the bathroom light off and I went back to my room. Turned on the light. Nothing ever came of it. It stayed on the rest of the evening. I fell back asleep. The next day, I remember it was, just about before bedtime, and I asked my mom again. I said, did you get up last night? Do you remember that? Because you walked out of the bathroom and into your room. My family, both me, my brother, and also my mom, sometimes, had sleepwalking issues, especially after the trauma that happened with my stepfather. Me and my mother had actually found him when he passed away. So after that, we'd all kind of had issues with sleepwalking. My brother occasionally still has it, even in his adult years. Well, I'd asked her, she said no, and so I had chalked it up to, okay, maybe she was sleepwalking, because sometimes we had to steer her back to her room and put her in bed. That evening came, and I laid down to go to sleep, turned the light on, and I rolled over. I believe it was around, because I remember looking at the clock. I was curious at this point, and I remember it being about somewhere between 2:45 and 3 a.m. I remember that much. The light was off when I woke up. That was the first thing that kind of woke me up, because I was not a fan of darkness. So I rolled over and turned on the light. Across the hall, the bathroom light was on. And I just remember thinking, did she do it again? Is she up? I get up and I walked over, shut off the light, and I turned back and I walk out into the hallway. Now here's where I can never know if it was a dream or it really happened. But I remember this so vividly that I'm actually getting goosebumps as I talk about it. I looked down the hallway. My mom was standing at the end of the hallway. All I could see was the back of her head and her normal robe she wears when she gets up and walks around, and she can't sleep. I remember going, "Mom, are you awake? Can you hear me?" And then from my mother's room, I hear, "What is it? What's wrong?" And the only way I can describe this next second to you is that it felt like it pulled out for an eternity. I remember not wanting to turn. I was like, no, it's just a dream. I don't want to turn. My head did it anyway. I turned slowly back to this thing that I initially thought was my mother. And I realized that this woman looked like my mother from the back, had no feet, and I couldn't move. I was stuck there in fear and absolute abject terror. And I remember it turning towards me. And when it turned towards me, it had no face. It is honestly the most bizarre, most terrifying things I've ever seen in my life. When she turned, or it turned, or whatever it was, I remember hauling it back to my room, slamming the door, laying in bed and turning the light on, and I stayed up the entire night. From what I can remember after that, it did not happen again. We moved shortly after that, and whatever had happened didn't happen again. But to this day, I still don't know if that was a dream or if it was reality. But if it was a dream, it was the most vivid dream, most terrifying dream I have ever had.